Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juliane, and I would like to welcome you to the webinar Building Analytical Applications in the Cloud with SAC. I am very happy to present our SAC experts Anastasia Korotina and Anik Hassan to you. They are both experienced senior consultants in the field of SAP Analytics Cloud and particularly in application design. Before we start, I may first inform you briefly about the organizational process. In the next 45 minutes, we will introduce the highlights of a SAP Analytics Designer to you. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat function on the right side of the toolbar. These questions are collected and presented after the presentation, or partly also answered in writing. At the end of the web session, a small survey will be published, and we ask you to take some time for that. The documents shown today will be sent to you by email. All participants are muted to avoid disturbing noise. For all who do not know us yet, just a few words about our company. We are a consulting company around SAP BI applications. The head office is in Switzerland with subsidiaries in Germany, in Austria and in Croatia. We are independent from any outside capital and have a strong and long-term partnership with SAP. CubeServ has built up extensive know-how over the past 20 years in SAP Analytics, in SAP BI, in SAP BW and SAP HANA, and recently also in SAP Analytics Cloud. With about 165 consultants, far more than 3,000 projects have been realized so far. And now I'm very happy to hand over to Anastasia and Anik for their insights in the world of SAP Analytics Designer and SAC.
Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. We will talk today about analytical applications in SAP Analytics Cloud, which we'll call SAC further on. In 40 minutes, we will briefly cover highlights you need to know about Analytics Designer. We will start with the tool positioning, follow with the key features and capabilities, first in theory and afterwards in practice. In our demo, you will have a look on the ready template, as well as follow Anik in building your first app step by step. We will finalize the webinar with the most common questions, which are difference between analytical application and story, and whether it's now the right time to switch from Lumira to the cloud. Analytic application is part of SAC. Analytics Cloud is a software as a service product. It has a lot of connectors to on-premise and cloud data sources, both with remote and live system access. It enables end users to work on the hybrid scenarios rightly in the browser. It is actually important to understand that SAP Analytics Cloud is not only a front-end tool, but it's a whole platform. It includes 4 main clusters, which are Business Intelligence, BI, Predictive, Planning, and Analytics Designer is a new component which incorporates all 3 other mentioned clusters. It means that along with the reporting and BI functionality, we can create custom applications for planning and predictive cases in one tool. And that is exactly the huge difference comparing to all other existing frontends. So what is actually an application? We already know the concept of stories. It lets us creating dashboards based on the predefined functionality of the widgets without any scripting. Application, in contrast, is based on scripting, and scripting language enables us to create custom logic for simple and complex scenarios. It's important to understand that it is IT-driven and can be changed by the end user only to the extent defined by the developer. Analytic application is a step forward standardization in the corporate environment, and it is made possible by creating reusable UI elements and logic. One more great thing is customer widgets. They will be generally available in the release of the Q4 in the current year, and they will let us extend current functionality of the SAC even further. Now let's talk about key functionalities which are available for the end users and for the developers. Components, or better to use SAC naming and call them widgets, are the main building blocks of the app. Analytic application contains all the widgets as the story. Those widgets keep the same behavior and functionality. Plus, additionally, application contains dashboard-specific widgets such as, for example, drop-down, step strips, radio button group, checkbox group. On the current slide, you see available standard components in the state-of-the-art dashboarding tool Lumira, which is on the left side, and in Application Designer on the right. Comparing to Lumira, Cloud Designer still contains much less components, but most widely used components are available. Plus, additionally, it's already possible to create custom widgets. From the development perspective, data binding is available for charts and tables, but not yet available for app design specific components such as drop-downs, text, checkboxes, radio button group. It means that more coding effort is required comparing, for example, to Lumira. But as we know, it's already on the roadmap to be improved. The next one is containers. Containers bring the hierarchical structure to the application. In the story, we can create several pages already now, and they will be on the same level of granularity. But it was not yet possible to create complex dashboard structures, for example, to have one page per department and additionally overview and details views per page. Now it will be possible, it is already possible with panels and tab strips in the designer. Pop-up is another special type of the container. Next, we are coming to the data sources. One important difference between Lumira and SAC is that in the Analytics Designer, there is no concept of data sources. There is no such component. It can be created as a separate object. In Lumira, we would create a data source, assign a query, and use this data source in as many charts and tables as we wished. Data sources always use one-to-one relation to components. There is no possibility to assign the data source, but it is still possible to get information about the data source over scripting. SAP is also considering grouping widgets for easier filtering, means one script per group instead of per widget, along with considering the parallel query execution and lazy loading, which is already possible manually in the browser. The next point is scripting. Scripting is a core functionality which differs application from the story, as mentioned before. It's a subset of JavaScript, like Lumira language, but with some different syntax. Some API methods are named differently, some remain the same, some are missing and some are new. For example, it's possible to use a console log or text, apply text method and while loops. It's still a subset of JavaScript, and we cannot do everything with what JavaScript normally offers. Code completion is available upon combination of control and space. Basic building blocks of scripting are script variables and functions, which are global and can be reused throughout application. There are already now many types of both. The data types and return values are available for almost every component type, along with the standard types such as integer, string, boolean. Those global variables can be used also as arrays. It shows its maturity almost on the same level as Lumira already. Coming to the next point, there are two places where you can enter the scripts. First one is the script functions for the application, which we discussed on the previous slide, and the second one is a script per widget, which is meant to use the script functions we define globally. While in Lumira we needed to double-click the object or select a certain script name in the component details. In Analytics Designer, by hover over in the layout, we can find the available script options per component. There are two things to keep in mind. First, not all the components have script events, so scripts are widget dependent. Second, depending on the component, it can be single or multiple script methods. As for example, for the whole canvas, we can define onResize and onInitialization scripts, while for button we would use onClick or onSelect for tables. Next topic is styling. Styling is done in a manner like it is done in the stories now. Every component has a builder and styling panel. Certain styles of the elements can also be changed via script APIs. Big difference to other front-end tools is that we don't have here the CSS functionality, but there is a whole new concept available which is called theming. The plan of SAP is to include in theming as many additional features as required to substitute the CSS component. Theme contains more settings of the widgets. It can be saved and viewed in the file repository and reused in other analytical applications, actually what helps us for future create the templates. The theme can also be set via the script, what gives user flexibility to, for example, quickly change from light to dark scheme of the dashboard. Next is Bookmark and Pdf. They are not standard components we have in the story, but rather it's a functionality. And since several waves, we have now them available also in the Analytics Designer. Maturity of bookmarking and PDF already now shows the rapid pace of development of the Analytics Designer. And bookmark can be private or global. The concept is similar to Lumira, where the bookmark functionality available and user interface should be programmed separately and is freely customizable. We already have now PDF in a very good quality, but for sure there are some features are missing. For example, the possibility to do distribution per dimension member, similar to what we have now in the story. Some more words for the developers. In general, the debugging and performance analysis functionality is still not on the very professional level, on the level how we have it, for example, in Lumira. It is still a challenge to check where do we lose the performance. The debugging is made with the help of the console log method. We can see now the error list in the info panel, and the huge difference from other on-premise tools is that we need to rely heavily on the Chrome browser developer tools in order to recognize the performance issues. Now I suggest let's have a look on the ready template and build our first app. So Anik, stage is yours.
Thank you, Anastasia. Now let's go in the system and have a look at our demo. There are two parts to the demo. The first part is a finished application which can be used as a template as a starting point in Analytics Designer. The second part of the demo is then that we really try to build a small application together during this webinar so that you have a feel of how this tool is working. So let's start with the template first. This is a generic template that we have designed, which can be adapted according to customer needs. So let's start at the layout. What this template offers, on the top left corner is the menu. What we have there, you have the possibility to show and hide the menu items. Let's go through each of the menu items over here that are available. The first one, the first icon showing a home button, is giving the possibility to the user to navigate back to the initial state of the application when he has navigated to another state. The second possibility is a PDF icon, where by clicking on this icon you can start an export of your application to PDF, which will be a screenshot of your current state of the application, which you can use to send out to your other colleagues. PDF is now printed, and then you can see that you have a nice screenshot of your application which can be sent to your other colleagues. Then we have the third option is to present the possibility of bookmarking with a nice bookmarking icon. Here you have the possibility to select between global and personal bookmarks, where you can say I want to save my current state of the application, and then it is saved according to your name. When you have saved your application bookmark, we can close this, and the bookmarks that we have saved, they are found here under Analytical Application Bookmarks. And as we see, we saved this application over here, and it is available for use. Then we have a further possibility to change the design of the application, which is basically using this settings button. What happens over here is that we give the user the possibility to change between two themes, which we see over here. When I click over here, this pop-up is presented, and I can change the title of my dashboard to live or to the current date, where I can say this was a screenshot from the current date and I want to have the theme as dark, or I can say that I want to use a light theme and go back to my standard. And this is basically realized by the concept of theming, which Anastasia has already presented. Then we have another further option. Using this info button, we can again display further information about the application. For our demo, we have a link to our CubeServ contact website, but this can be adapted according to your needs. Then when we go into the content details of this application, we will see that we start with a nice welcome message for the user with the current date, which helps us in our screenshots. Then we have two tabs, overview and details. The overview tab has a graphical display of our main KPIs on the left, and our KPI, current selected KPI, shown according to different dimensions on the right. For example, I want to show my sales per country, then I have it over here, and same figure by ship mode I have in this graphic. What this template allows us to do is that we can click on one of these navigation points, which we see these three arrows, and then all of the graphics on the right side, they will be updated with the current key figure that we wanted to use. The further possibility is that we can click on this time series icon or this clock icon, and then the application will show us a time series graph for the currently clicked KPI, which is a standard feature from SAP. And here we can further do our time series analysis as per our requirement. What we can do over here as well is the export function, which is also a standard SAP functionality, or to add forecasts to this application. Then I'll close and go back. Then we have on the right side, as I mentioned, our details, our overview graphics with different measures, different dimensions. And here we can further select a filter by clicking on one of these dimensions. For example, I want to see the values for region East. I click on East, and then all of my data in the dashboard or application is filtered. The selected key figure or the selected value of the member is shown over here on the top in the filter line component, which can be clicked and then adjusted according to needs again. What is also possible in filtering is that Application Designer allows us to do a multiple select with this mouse, or lasso select as it is called. It is exactly the same feature as we are filtering other members by clicking one of them. Then we go to our details page, where we have further analytical options for displaying our content. What we show over here is that you have the possibility to switch between the table and graphical view, or the user can say I want to see another key figure according to another dimension, and then this can be dynamically changed and further analyzed. What SAC this template also offers is that we can go further in the data exploration view, where we have the possibility to do further analysis of our data. This is also a standard API that is provided by Analytics Designer, and we can further explore our data. Analytics Designer then provides also two possibilities to launch smart discovery applications from smart discovery stories from an application. One is for the selected key figure. As we see over here, by clicking on this button, we are asked if we want to launch smart discovery for our key figure, or it can also be done for a value of a dimension. This is basically a simple application which can be used as a starting point in Analytics Designer and can be adjusted according to requirements. Okay, cool. Now we have seen the possibilities that Analytics Designer offers. Now we will go in system and try to create our first application, a very basic one, but just to create and to get an idea how this tool is working. For that, I will go in the menu and say create application. Important thing to mention over here is that we have a partner tenant which is on the fast track release. We are not on the quarterly release cycle, which most of the customers have. This means that we are getting new features still every second week. So there is a possibility that maybe some of the features that we show today in this webinar, they are not available in your tenant, but they will be released and in the next release end of November. So I have started a new application. This is basically the tool Analytics Designer. What we see over here is that the tool is divided into different regions. I'll start from the top left corner. First of all is the file area, where we have the possibility to change the settings of the application, to save the application, or to copy widgets, or to share the application with other colleagues. I will go ahead and save my application straight away so that I don't lose any of my progress. Important to mention over here is that we should always follow a proper structure in the tenant, a folder structure, which is a really important concept to keep the tenant clean. This is why I will save it in my live demo folder for now, and I will also give it a description. With this, our application is saved. Now we can proceed with our further designing and then test our application as well. Let's have a look at the other areas in the application. There are different kind of views possible for this tool. The first one is the outline view, which is on the left side of the application, which basically provides us or displays the layout structure of the application, and also where we can add or remove script elements and other objects like Bookmark and Pdf, which Anastasia has already mentioned. Then we have the second view. This is the info view, where we have the list of errors and references. If we want to see for this application, we will for now turn this view off. Then we have the insert menu, where we have different possibilities of inserting new widgets to our application simply by clicking it. And then under the tools menu, we have the possibility to set scaling and conditional formatting. Also, then under the data area, we have the possibility to refresh our data or to set variables or link variables. Then we come to the display option, where we have the possibility to set or change the theme of an application. This is also something that was previously done in Lumira over CSS, but SAP has then come up with a solution called theming for the same thing. Then on the right side, we have two buttons, Designer and Run Application. Designer is basically our design time. If we want to extend or further improve our application, then we can go in Designer mode and then change our application and save again. When we have saved our application once, then we can say Run Application, and the application will be shown in another tab, how the user will see it as well. Then on the right side, just like stories, we have two menus. The first one is Builder menu. and the second one is styling menu. This is exactly the same as in stories. These two menus are context dependent, and we can change our technical settings in the builder menu, and then our styling options in the styling menu. Now we'll go ahead and start with our application. What I want to do is I want to show some information from my model that I have already created for my visualization. I will search for my model in my tenant and then use this model to display the data that I want to show. So I have inserted a chart and assigned a data source to it. Then I am going to assign a measure to this chart. I want to show some sales data, but not as a bar chart. I want to show it as a numeric chart. I will go here in the chart structure and go ahead with changing the chart type. I don't want to lose so much place, so I will just make it a bit smaller, make it move it a bit to the right as well so that it looks nice, and then I will copy it to another chart as well, because I want to show right now another key figure, not sales but profit over here now, and then we have the possibility to show exactly the information. One important thing over here is that when we are working with applications, then it is important to divide our application into logical areas. For that, we have the container components that Anastasia already mentioned. I will go ahead and divide my application into components, into different logical areas. For that, I will insert a panel and say this is my panel header. Over here, I would like to mention the importance of naming conventions. As you see that I've changed the name of the panel to a proper naming convention that we want to follow. It is really important for scripting later on to have a proper naming convention. I will go ahead and change the component according to my requirements. I want to have the first few pixels in my design only assigned for the header. This is why I will move down my chart elements a bit so that I have place for my header. I'll go ahead, click on the panel component and say I want to have an automatic width for it so that it takes all the place. I want to set left margin to 0 and the right margin to 0 as well, so that it takes all the place. And then I will set the height to 64, so that our first area is our header area. I'll go ahead and change the background of this panel to white so that it looks nicer or according to my requirement. Now we have defined our header area. What I want to do in my header area is that I want to show my title. Basically, I will insert a text element for that, and it will be inserted in this header area. I will go ahead and give it a title, sales dashboard. Once I have given the title, I want this to be shown in the form of a header. I will go ahead, select the text and go in styling and say I want this to be shown as header, and then it is immediately changed to a header component. I will go ahead and save my progress so that I don't lose any of my work that I've already done. And for the second part of the application, I will again insert another panel. The top margin should be 64. This has been rightly selected by the application itself. I want my height to be automatic as well, because I want to start it over here and end it to the bottom of my page. For that, I will set the bottom margin to 0. I will set the right margin to 0 as well, all margins basically to 0, that it takes everything else in my design. Then I will move simply by drag and drop my two charts which I have created before to this panel, and I will save my progress. Now I see that my charts are a bit low, so rather than what I expected, I will set the margin of both of the charts to 10 pixels from the top, so that they are presented in a nice order. What I want to do is that I want to add some borders to my chart as well. This is also something that works quite fast. I will just say add borders, and I can simply add borders to both of my chart. Okay, now we have our area defined. I started my panel from another place. I wanted to have a margin of 64 pixels so that my header is also shown. I will go ahead and change the background color of this chart as well. Then we have our two areas, and now we have our basic visualization as well. Now I want to extend my demo a bit more with a chart showing me the information of sales, but by a dimension, and not only the total sales. I want to see my sales for countries. For that, I will take the measure sales and the dimension country in my display, and then I will make it big enough for this screen so that it works fine, or it looks fine. Okay, then we have our information shown also in a chart, but we want to show exactly the same information for our colleagues who are more familiar with tables. Then I will insert a table as well to my application, but I don't want to show both of the information at the same time. So I want to show either a table or a chart. What I will do is that I will configure my table so that it shows exactly the same information, but drag it behind my chart so that we show both of them exactly at the same place, but we don't want to show both of them all the time. So what I want to do is that design time, initially only the chart should be shown. I'll go in my styling and say don't show this at design time, and I'll hide it from my layout as well so that it's not shown over here as well. And then I will insert a new icon or an image where my user can click and say I want to now see the table view. So this is a table image I will insert to this application and say that when I click on this image, then I want to see my table inside of my chart. For that, I will go inside this the scripting part of this application, which you can start by clicking on this FX button over here, or you can find this in the context menu of the image as well. I will go here and write my code for this and say chart3. I don't want to show it anymore. I will hide it, but I want to show my table. I will say visible true, and I don't want to show my image as well because it is not anymore relevant when we have already the table shown. So I have saved my progress, and then I want to run my application and test if I am done with the requirements. I'll run it and check if it works fine. So the application is now there. We see that initially only the chart is shown, but we want to switch to the table component, and by a simple click we change to the table component. What we can do over here is that we can add another icon and switch back to the chart component, but it is exactly the same logic. I will not show it in my demo. And with that, we have created our first application in Analytics Designer, which also shows that how fast the development speed of this tool is when we are using this to develop our applications. With that, I'm done with the demo part of our webinar, and I would request Anastasia to please continue with the presentation. So Anastasia, thank you.
Thank you, Anik, for a great demo. So now it's time to tackle most asked questions. Let's start with the positioning of Lumira versus Analytics Designer. First of all, Lumira is on-premise tool, which requires the installation of, so to say, fat local clients, whereas with the SAC, you can create dashboard directly in the browser. From the licensing perspective, Lumira is part of Business Object BI license, and for the SAC, you need a standard BI license with the only exception for the planning scenarios. We are expecting a new version of Lumira in the next year with some new features, and at least until 2027, the Lumira will be supported. As we know, SAC is updated around every second week for fast-track customers and partners, and otherwise we are getting the GA every quarter. So that shows us the general direction is that all new features and innovations strategically will come to the application designer in the cloud. On one side, there are many customers who haven't used any front-end tools until now, and for them the advice is to start with the application designer. On the other side, there are many customers who have already created many dashboards with Lumira Designer. That is why now very often we hear the question, should we move to SAC or stay with Lumira? The answer is not so obvious. It actually depends. It depends on many things. General advice is to keep the current dashboard until current life cycle is over. As a next step, we need to analyze the usage patterns, use case, and the complexity of the existing solution you have. Some Lumira features are still available only in Lumira. For example, BI IP planning applications, we recommend to start even now with Lumira. Also, for example, data binding is missing or APIs when communicating with the component, but the majority of them is on the roadmap. At the same time, there are quite some features which are available only in Analytics Designer. For example, predictive planning, BPC, and so on. It's also worth mentioning that migration between Lumira and SAC is not planned. Another important question is what is the difference between story and analytical application? Story we know as a self-service approach where business users can create visualizations by themselves, applying standard scenarios. All the components such as page filter, story filter, linked analysis, and others provide predefined behavior and it cannot be modified. That is why we need analytical application to be able to create specific scenarios where custom interactions and navigation elements are required. The app requires a lot of scripting and styling, what is not suitable for the business user. So developer is needed here. Once it is done, it will be provided to end users without possibility to do changes without scripting. Story and analytical application are two totally different entities, and two different areas of SAC needs to be accessed when working with that. But the goal of SAP was to provide the same user experience for the end user, so that the consumer of the content should not be able to see the difference from the usability perspective when being in the story or application. For sure, it is applied to the viewer mode. Visualization elements like charts and tables are the same in both. The only difference is the navigation and custom-made interactions, which are available only in the application. Additionally, there are several components, as for example, drop-downs, buttons, which are available only in Designer. In comparison with Lumira, where no migration is planned, as we mentioned before, it is already now possible to copy components from the story to Designer, and on the roadmap is a possibility to convert their whole story into analytical application. So more or less the same process that was planned with Lumira Discovery and Lumira Designer. Next, let's come to the product plan. We do not want to show the standard SAP roadmap with 100 features, but instead we want to concentrate on the really most important features which are required to close the gap with other front-end tools and extend the must-have functionality. So first, composites is a most wanted feature which will ease the implementation of the standardized dashboards in a way that we can later easily maintain changes centrally. Data binding is another feature for the developers which will decrease the implementation effort. Shared data sources is also something what developers are used to in Lumira, but as per the latest update, SAP is still validating the requirements. There is actually a very simple reason for that. We as developers want it in order to control better the performance of the dashboard. But SAP is putting now much effort in the whole performance topic. Therefore, in case the required performance level is reached, the concept of this new shared data sources might not be needed anymore. Scheduling and broadcasting are also about to come already very soon in the story, and we expect them in the next quarters available as API connectors in the designer. In general, the roadmap is to include more APIs to get as much functionality from Lumira as possible. But again, we want to repeat that on one hand, nevertheless, some functionality is still missing. On the other hand, we can leverage much more functionality than available in any other front-end tool. To sum up, if you have a question in mind, if now it's the right time to go live, we need to start with your requirements. We have already several successful go live projects with our customer Randstad. You will also get their detailed project description after the webinar. And to help you with the decision whether to go in the cloud or not, we suggest at least 1-2 days workshop together with the estimation of the existing dashboards and your future requirements. We offer the workshops both for developers and for the IT management. In the introduction workshop, you will get to know basic application building, and it is useful for the whole IT team, also for the business departments to know the art of possibility. While in the 4-day deep dive workshop, developers will learn most or all the implementation concepts and will be ready right away to start with a new dashboard. You can also get our enabler template, which we have shown in the demo, or we can develop your thoughts tailor-made template together. Once our customers have made a decision to work with analytics application, we also support more complex cases with the customer widgets in case some specific components are missing. We have also participated in the SAP Hackathon devoted to the Analytics Designer and developed a dashboard for the healthcare area with the hospital analytics. After the webinar, we will send the presentation, and you can find there a link to the blog about the hackathon, as well as the links to different developer guides. Thank you a lot for your attention. We will be glad to hear your feedback and adjust future webinars accordingly. You can contact us directly or also get in touch with the representatives in our offices in Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thanks a lot. Bye.